that it's actually going. And you might hear some feedback of what I said about 30 seconds ago as I do this. You might. Yep. All right. We got it. Fantastic. All right. So let me just view speaker view. Let me just pin this. So it'll go and so you can see me. Let me just, there we go. All right, now I'm up. Okay, so this should be what we have. Hey, good morning. How are you guys? Welcome. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Elizabeth Hughes. For those of you who do, who are either watching the replay or here personally, thanks for being here. It's awesome. None of you who are here right now were here last week. And what happened was I noticed in a physician side gigs group on Facebook that there was an enormous amount of interest in what it takes to start a coaching business. And there was, like hundreds of people who were trying to follow, like, I want to know. And I was like, nobody's actually just giving information. So I decided last week I decided on the spur of the moment, why don't I just get on and talk about what I've done and what I've done. And so last week I talked about technical stuff, but there were a ton of questions that came in afterwards. And of course, oh, someone's coming in. There were a ton of questions that came in afterwards. Oh, we got a bunch of people here. Sorry. This is what happens when you're running it yourself as well. Ton of questions that came in afterwards. There we go. Fantastic. And we're just going to ignore the telephone that's going off because best laid plans, something's going. Okay. There were a ton of questions that came in about like training and like how I got started, and we started to touch on the idea of finding your niche, finding your genius, finding what it is that you want to coach in. And I thought, okay, let me just get on and I'm just going to talk about those topics right now. Oh, more people, hang on. So I know some of you have heard this. I'm just going to mute the folks who are coming in. First off, if you missed a few minutes, you'll get the replay on this. I believe if you, for some reason, don't think I have your email to send you the link, you can just like put something in the chat and says, like I need the link, and I'll figure out how to get that to you. Okay. And so for those of you who are coming in late, you'll hear all of this. So what I want to talk about today is, I've titled this Finding Your Genius, but there are a couple things I want to talk about. I want to talk about sort of finding your niche, finding your genius, training, different types of training, which plays into different coaching approaches, and then some roadblocks that people come up against when they're trying to add coaching to an existing medical practice or transition out of conventional medicine and going into coaching. Yeah, so I'll talk about those. There's a lot. Oh, perfect. All right, I'm just going to write that down. Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to take notes and along here because I'll make sure that everybody who needs what they need can get that. Okay, fantastic. So let me start with a basic premise. If you are considering either adding a coaching element to an existing medical practice or transitioning to only working with people, helping people through a coaching model, it almost assuredly means that you have had some change in your own life. It usually means that you've had some sort of transformational experience yourself that you realize like, whoa, other people could benefit from this, and I'd like to share it with them. And there's not a space for it in my regular medical practice. And this is, because people don't necessarily coach unless they all have had their own personal transformation. And so this is the root of how you're going to find your genius and define your niche, honestly. That is that is the thing that is going to give you, let's say, an advantage over for people over just information that they can read from a book. Because let's be honest here, there is an enormous quantity of information out there. The amount of information out there is unbelievable, and growing all the time. And there are, I was going to do this before this. I was going to just Google, like look on Amazon how many self-help titles there are, but hundreds of thousands of probably medical self-help titles of all sorts. And each of those has value. Each of them talks about something that's important, that's something that people can benefit from. But if you're going to actually see that change, or whatever change you want in someone, the coaching that you do, or the work that you do, the teaching, the guiding, whatever you want to call it, has to stand out from what people can get in a book. Because otherwise it's not necessarily, I don't want to say it's not valuable, but it's not transformational in the way that you want. And of course, you have already gone through some sort of transformation, I'm assuming, and you want to share that. So how you work with people and how you find your niche and define your genius, that all depends on what was it that was your transformational point. What I see a lot of people do, and it's not, again, it's not a bad thing, but what many people will do is they will have a transformational point. I'm going to take a person who I know personally. She had a transformational point. She was, despite being a primary care physician and knowing how to take care of her health, and she was overweight, tired, exhausted, and had rising blood pressure. I think that's what it was. All right. So she opted a different diet, a different lifestyle, dropped the weight, feels better than ever. And now she wants to bring this to all of her patients. And so that's fantastic. That's really good stuff. But when we talk about it, it's not the diet and the exercise alone that really changed that. It was what happened when she made her mind flip. What happened when she said, wait, I am going to have a different experience. What I've been doing has not worked, and I want to do something different. And that's that right there, not the stuff that come after about what to eat, not that these aren't important, but that mindset change that she went through, that that I went through. That I went through in a big way. And I'm assuming all of you who have had some sort of transformational experience, that mindset change is where you find your genius, and and then once you found your genius point, that then you can start to define like your niche and how to get training. And I'll talk about that in a second. Now, we're not going to do that today. We're not going to go through that whole process today, but I just want to highlight for you that, how do I put this? we doctors are doers, right? We get ideas and we go off and we do them. We then, immerse ourselves in some sort of training, some sort of procedure. We then do it. And there's not necessarily the reflection on the why and the how, the profound internal mind shift that you went through. And and that is the that is why coaching, that's what can't be substituted um, in a book. It can't necessarily. And I read self-help books around medicine sort of voraciously. I read them all the time. And what I'm always looking for is what's the why behind it. So as you're thinking about this might take a little, this might be a process that takes a little while for you. In fact, I've had to grow into it. I mean, my uh, what I have understood about my own motivation has grown, and as I've done that, I have become more successful. And I mean successful in terms of helping other people, because that's really how I define success, and also successful in my own career as a coach. That's made a huge difference when I was able to hone in on the sort of why and the intangibles rather than just dive into the what, the action and the busy of what to do. So this leads into, I got a ton of questions and some confusion about coaching programs, because there's an enormous variety and it's a little bit like the Wild West out there. Um, like, if you feel like you need a certification in something, you don't know what to choose. It's not like there's a medical board that tells you nephrology fellowship looks like this. Here are the programs. Like, this is what you've got to learn. There's not that certainty. And speaking as someone who did this, I did a lot of different coaching type certifications and a lot of personal education, and found a bunch of them not to quite fit right. And that is because in the beginning, I didn't understand my own motivation. I didn't do that step number one, like, what is the genius point? What is that I felt in myself that thought was important, that I want to bring into the world? And so I went toward things that weren't great fits for me. So there is, let's talk a little bit about the coaching philosophies. And as I talk about this, let me think about this. All right. So first off, I have a very specific coaching philosophy and a coaching approach that is very different from other people's. And it's something I've grown into over time. And it's not something that works for everyone. And so that's all right. You can have the coaching philosophy or coaching approach that you want, as long as it is your genius, like as long as it is the thing that really sparkles for you. You use whatever it is that sparkles for you. But then you need to make sure that you're getting the training that is getting you in the right direction. And so, for instance, one of the questions that helped me inspire to get back onto the call today was a person who had said, well, I think I'm interested in helping people with mindset shifts. And I was like, okay, great. And I think I want to do functional medicine training. And I was like, okay, I think there might be a little bit of a mismatch there. Not that functional medicine is a bad thing by any means, but it's not necessarily as focused on the mindset shifts as what, a different type of approach. So, I'm going to talk about some real basic coaching philosophies out there, and these are incredibly broad, incredible silos of coaching approaches. And I'm going to talk really about working with patients. So if your coaching interest is in something else, there's a whole other world out there. Okay, and please pipe in and ask questions. I've already used the chat, or argue with me on this. So I see a silo that is more or less working within a medical system and the medical approach, but incorporating more, let's say, lifestyle choices. This could be something that is more nutrition based. It is still biologically based. It is part of the sort of medical, the accepted medical model, or the prevailing medical model of health. Just something that doesn't get taught in medical school. Like, that's maybe a way of thinking about it. Like, it's something that some other people in peripheral medicine areas are interested in do, but it's just not taught in medical school. So for this, I would probably put this sort of lifestyle medical training, functional medicine, which is all about adding additional things to your treatment armamentarium, right? So instead of just, beta blockers and ACE inhibitors or whatever you've got for blood pressure lowering, you also may have dietary modifications, you may have exercise, and you may be able to talk with people better about those modifications, but it's still in a medical model. You're just adding things that you can prescribe to people. And so that's one way of looking at that. And there are oodles and oodles of trainings out there, or certification programs out there, that help with that idea, with that what I'll say is extra tools approach. Now, there's a little bit of overlap with the second silo, which is more on the motivational end of things. And this is adding coaching in a way that you might have, let's say, in a medical practice, you would gather a group of people who are all, let's say, diabetic, and are having difficulty sticking with a diet, and work through a specific motivational program to stay, to achieve their goals and stick with their medical program. Now, it is a little different than the let's add, let's say, dietary changes or exercise changes. It's a little different, but there is an overlap there. And here's where your genius comes in. Like, this is where your genius is. Like, maybe what you want to do is sort of go deep and really educate people and inspire people the way, like, your best teacher ever did. And, wouldn't it be cool to have a set of skills that talk about, okay, how do I do group dynamics? How do I get, the group frustration and turn it into something that looks like motivation? How do I create that synergistic effect of having a group of people who are all devoted to something? So that is one, way. And it overlaps, but it is different from the folks who are more interested in, let's say, if everybody could just, adjust this thing in their diet, like everything would be better. And so there's a methodology versus a in one versus a let's say a real coach. Like one's a little bit more like an actual coach. Like, how do we make this a team, and how do we have the whole team succeed? And so that, and this again doesn't have to be in groups or in solo practices. So then there's a totally other approach, and this is where I have gone, which is to sort of work on mindset outside of the medical system, so to speak. So for instance, I don't prescribe diet, I don't prescribe exercise, I don't adjust medications. And I talked about this in the last video about liability insurance, but I don't even talk about diagnoses for what for my type. I work on the beliefs that sort of underlie that. Beliefs, because this is what I saw, beliefs like everybody in my family gets blank disease, I am destined to get blank. And so that is a little different than the medical model of, we've all got, you've got diabetes, let's get you motivated to take care of your diabetes. I look at this a little differently, and I say, okay, as long as you're going to believe that diabetes is something that you have to have, are you ever really going to be free of it? And that's my approach. My approach does not resonate with everybody. Just the same way the dietary approach or the mechanical medicine, the materialistic medicine approach doesn't agree with everyone. Just the same way, let's say, the actual inspiration to work on sticking with illness doesn't work for everyone. But those are some broad categories of things you might want to look at. So if you are very interested in category number one, that looks like medicine, I want to learn other ways of treating an illness, then something like functional medicine, lifestyle medicine, there's tons of things out there. And these are the things that I'll say the American Board of Medical Specialties are jumping on, so that you can do fellowships and you can get certified in them, and you can have your diploma or certification, and then the good thing about that is, once you're certified, then you can have your regular medical, or you should be able to have your medical liability insurance, that you can get a rider and have it covered because it's a recognized medical specialty. And so you can, add it into an existing medical practice more easily, bill for it, et cetera, et cetera. And so you're going to stay in the medical model there. The other areas, for instance, in the coaching, like I want to actually create enthusiasm and get that. I'm just the show, The Biggest Loser is coming to me, like the person who says, like, I want to get you motivated to do something and to change your life and health and things like that. There's oodles of programs for that as well. Those tend not to be something that you're going to get through a medical specific focus, like a doctor only group. So you may end up there are lots of coaching academies that will teach you how to work with to get people to reach their goals. But oftentimes you will be looking at things that are like executive leadership. Like, believe it or not, there's a lot more on that leadership end and motivational stuff that you might want to look at in addition. And it doesn't look like medicine, but you might want to look there if that's where your sweet spot is for how you'd like to work with people. And then, for the mindset, let's say if you really want to work on getting to mindset, well, then you're going to be, I'm going to be honest, I'm way off in the different world. And there are some coaching programs that are about mindset. There are some medical or let's say subconscious belief changing. But this is a world that I've had to find my way and feel my way into when I did the other things and they didn't really 100% fit for me. I shouldn't say, I knew that the diet and exercise wasn't it, that the mindset shift was going to be it. But I did a lot of things in this middle category and none of them really went. And then I was like, oh, it's over here. And it's not that I don't use this. It's not that any bit of training or any bit of my experience of really refining my genius was wrong or bad or a waste of time. I can bring it all over into what I want to do. And that's another, well, maybe we should talk. Let me ask, are there any questions? Do you coach exclusively for, all right. Do I coach exclusively for patients as opposed to coaching other physicians and providers? That is a great question. All right. I actually do a mix. And what I've found is that about 40 to 50% of my clients are also healthcare professionals. So I have coached and I do coach doctors. I have a couple of dentist clients, a veterinarian, nurses, like, upper level management nurses, and a few PhD psychologists. So it's interesting that the people who come to me, I think they're attracted to me by being an MD already. So, and what's fascinating about how I work is that I don't look at your physical condition as some sort of isolated thing that needs a mechanical treatment. A lot of times your physical condition is wrapped up in, let's say, job dissatisfaction. So I don't want to say, how do I say, the people find me because they are having physical symptoms and they recognize that it has to do with something that's going on in their lives. And it just so happens that people do come to me. And a lot of times, despite the fact that somebody's there for, let's say, chronic arthritis and back pain, we end up talking only about their medical practice. And the medical and the back pain gets better and the arthritis gets better and they can start walking again when we sort out their professional situation. And so it's my approach is way more broad reaching because we are complete organisms, and how I spend most of my waking hours professionally has to have an effect on my body, right? It has to. So, and what I will also say is that every single solitary person that I have, every single solitary medical person that I have coached, medical professional that I've coached, has made a change in their practice that has been like totally mind-blowingly beneficial for them, not just physically, but in terms of joy and happiness and work-life balance. So it all works out together, which is cool. Okay, great question.
Can I ask a follow-up on that?
Please.
Okay, so it sounds like the people who come to you come with sort of an individual problem or 7 that they've identified,
Yes.
and then you sort of get to the roots of it. Do you ever intentionally focus on sort of what this sort of is the primary problem? Excuse me. He's 5.
It's fine.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for my 15-year-old to walk in and say, "Mom, I need breakfast."
I know, totally. Get it yourself. Do people ever come saying like, I want a shift in my career? Or do they come saying like, the result of my current life has this bad effect and I want to address that? Like, are you sort of a career coach, or do you sort of go that way if you feel like that's at the root of the back pain?
So I am more on the second, that people come to me with physical symptoms. That's where I've found my niche. Not to say, so what I'll say is people who know me personally, like personal friends, will and know kind of what I do, will say, hey, do you think you can help me with that? So it's not something I advertise, but I do work with people when they realize like how I work with that mindset. They'll like, oh, if that would work for I'm a dermatologist, so somebody's chronic psoriasis and make it go away, wouldn't it do something for, everything else? Yeah. And a lot of people are aware that like, I'm being knocked down by migraines on a regular basis and I need to make this stop, because if I don't, I cannot work. And so then, like you have to get into the career. All right, perfect. Any other questions? I love that. That was a great one. Okay, fantastic. So I want to take a few minutes and talk about some very specific roadblocks that physicians will run into. And this is because I have coached so many people, and I'm lumping the dentists and the veterinarians and into this because we all have essentially the same fundamental underlying let's say subconscious programming that happens in the course of going through so many years of school. Because it's not, when I think about it, it's not just medical school. I mean, I figured out I wanted to be a doctor when I was 13 years old, and I was, smart. We're all smart, right? We're all really intelligent. But I figured out that I wanted to be a doctor when I was 13 years old, and I figured out very, very quickly exactly what that was going to require of me. And so, like I realized that even though I was in middle school, my high school was crap. And I was going to need to get myself into a better school. So I got myself into a better school and got myself a scholarship to go to a private school, and got this. So it's like you get on this train of what's required of you. But along the way, there are some very specific roadblocks that you, as you want to become a coach, or you want to add coaching, or you want to make that transition, there's some super specific roadblocks that you're going to come up against. They may look a little different for each of you, but they're I want to say they're universal to the medical mind, and maybe sometime later I can talk about how medicine brainwashes us, but I won't right now, although I'll touch on it. So one of these beliefs that people really glom onto is that they have to be perfect. And that perfection idea shows up in a couple different ways. First off, and I am totally guilty of this, totally guilty. There is this sense of, all right, if I just get the next training, if I just learn the right thing, if I just get the next certification, if I get the piece of paper, I just need one more thing and then I'll be ready. And then I'll be perfect, and then I'll be cooked and baked and ready to go. So, because in medicine, you're not ready until you have the piece of paper, until you have the certification. And what's really this I could only get from doing this for, 6 years now, is the sense that in coaching, you not only are allowed to evolve, you're supposed to evolve. You are supposed to get better. Kind of the way residency, you walk into residency and as a first, as right out of med school, you're useless, but you get better really fast as you get thrown into it. You don't, the same thing happens with coaching. And so don't, I guess that I have to be perfect and I have to be done. Recognize that that's there. And that's one of the things, some of these, I think the sort of more formal fellowships like the functional medicine fellowship, that those types of, or those deciding to get that type of certification, not that it's a bad thing, but just be aware that it is very definitely playing into this common roadblock of I have to be perfect before I can get started. And that's actually, you're never, in coaching, you're not going to be perfect until you do it. Yes. And that I have to be perfect holds a ton of people back all the time. All right. Another roadblock, and this is enormous, is this doesn't look like medicine, right? There's, even in all of these different ways of approaching things. Oh, thank you, Bridget. All right, bye. We'll talk soon, okay? Thank you. In all of these physician, in all of these silos, you will get a sense that it's not medicine, because you're going to be up against all of the training and all of the white coats that stood in front of you to start with, that have told you how it's supposed to be done, and have enforced this idea of, there's got to be evidence, there's got to be, peer-reviewed papers, it's got to be featured at conferences, et cetera, et cetera. This is a biggie. And this is, in my life, it's felt like this huge undertow. Like you're out, you're out in the water and you think you're doing okay, and you're going to get sucked back in a way that you don't even recognize. And all of a sudden you're down, like you're down out, you're out in the water, or you're down the coast somewhere where you don't know you are, and it'll draw you back, unfortunately. And so it's, be aware of that. This is something that on all of the, physicians and medical professionals that I have coached, this has been enormous. And another part of that, it's tied in, is you kind of lose your tribe. Like, it's a little bit, fun to have a shared language of people who understand, who already know what you've been through, what your basics are, that we mark ourselves with our white coats and things like that, or our scrubs, whatever it is, that all of a sudden not to have your tribe is, it's kind of like that. This isn't peer reviewed, but also you'll need to find a new tribe. Like, that's super duper important. You will need to find another tribe to, and it doesn't have to be a huge tribe. It just has to be a group of people that are with you on this journey, because otherwise, I see this for a lot of folks, they're out in the cold, and it's so easy then just to, something about that aloneness is, causes some self-sabotage. And this is one of the things that I see in my practice all the time. Let me see, there's another one. Oh, Oh, I'm disappointing society because I somehow took an oath when I went to medical school that I was going to do one specific thing for the rest of my life. And this is, it's so funny that I would forget this one because this is the biggest one. Like clearly I still want to forget it too. Um, that that I am somehow um, not fulfilling my destiny. I'm in a disappointment to society, that I am going to do something, I am not fulfilling my promise. Um, this is so unique to physicians. Lawyers jump ship and do something else all the time. Engineers will move around and they'll stop doing engineering. But doctors have this almost like we took religious vows. And if you decide you're going to leave the flock, so to speak, you yourself are a disappointment. But you're disappointed if you stay because, in the world that I work in, you're also, anxious and burned out and exhausted or whatever it is. Like you're having a completely dissatisfying life experience, and you can see it that it's your professional experience is wrong, and yet you feel like you have to stay. You're compelled to stay. And this is a physician unique situation that I see in a lot of folks, and it is, I think, the hardest to break. Um, so, any other questions right now? I just wanted to just run through some of these things that I wasn't able to do when I last week, but I'd love to see. Um, um, any other questions or any other comments that you all have? Anything else that you might, I'm looking at the chat. Anything else that anybody has? Because I love questions. So bring on the questions.
Sure.
Any tips on finding a tribe within this world that you're describing? Like, where's the tribe?
So, so this is
right.
this is a really good question, because we need a tribe. We definitely do. And this whole, I decided to okay, back up. Much of my tribe I've found are not physicians now, or they're, I don't want to say they're not physicians, but I've got a few people who I feel like are my tribe who are, but a lot of them aren't. And so it's that peeling off of the white coat and actually moving into something, that transitional phase that can feel really hard. But I recognize that in my way I view the world, my philosophical approach, the way I work with people, that I have a lot. I've got the medical knowledge, but I don't necessarily have the medical approach anymore. So I've got a tribe of people who are more on the outside the box. But what I wanted to say is, all of the, I've done 2 forums in the last couple weeks, all based on this one Facebook thread that had hundreds of people saying, I want to know, I want to know, I want to know. And I'm thinking well, A, I'll tell you, but B, this is an area that, perhaps creating a tribe is something that I'll do, anybody will do. It's Seth Godin's book, Tribes, right? It's like, what are you supposed to do when it's your turn to lead and it's always your turn, or something like that. So this might be something that, that I work on in the future. And if you're interested in that, I'd love to know if there's interest actually in the first place. Would it be great to have some sort of place for people who are getting through that transition and need other doctors, want a tribe? Let me know, because this is something that I would love to be able to do for folks.
Yeah, I think what I'm looking for initially, as I'm trying to sort of figure out the different options here, is more of a philosophical tribe, like, medicine apart from medicine,
Yeah.
but sort of defining what are the different niches, or even the words for the niches in this world, right? So it's really helpful to say, like, okay, there's motivation, there's
Yeah.
um, mindset shifts. But are there groups or people sort of publicly talking about being coaches for physicians, or the process of sort of mindset leaving medicine and using your skills elsewhere? Like, where have you had those conversations?
Okay. That's
It's big,
super.
sorry.
No, I love the question. I love the question. So, um, at the beginning, all of the questions were grumpily in the hallway when a bunch of people were doing consults in the hospital. Like I remember not long before I resigned from my um, one of my jobs. Like one of the problems was I kept going through jobs and thinking I would change careers and it would make me happier. Right before I resigned from one job that was like I was doing a consult in the hospital, and the attending physician for the patient and the infectious disease person and me, the dermatologist, we were all there trying to figure out what the drug rash was. But one of them didn't say, so what do you think the rash is? She's like, so how sick of this are you? That was her first question, like, how sick of this are you? Like, how, whatever. So it's interesting. The So finding a philosophical tribe about coaching for physicians, I know there are people out there, but I'm thinking of one person in particular, whom I don't love the approach he takes, but he's noisy. Like that's the thing. There's a lot of noisy people out there. I have done working specifically with physicians through a liability insurance company, and managed to find a group of physicians who were interested in helping coach other physicians through that. But it's a few and far between. I mean, I think you're telling me that this is a niche that's got some needs, and I'm going to put my thinking cap on and start to work on it, because I think we need something that's specific for people who want to make that transition and who want to do it. So yeah. Physician Coaching Institute. Yeah. Physician Alliances for finding a physician to coach. Yes. And those are good places. Um, what they're not necessarily, I'm aware of those. What they're not necessarily is open communities for people who are trying to dip their feet into it, or try to get their head around it. The Physician Coaching Institute is a training institute, and you'll have a marvelous, marvelous group of people once you're in the training. But if it's not really like, it's not a place to sort of say, okay, how am I going to find my philosophy, right? Same, and then the Physician Coaching Alliance is there's tons of things. Like for a while, I was listed on Psychology Today as a coach for people with, physical illness and anxiety disorders. So Physician Coaching Alliance is the same idea for finding a coach if you want to find someone. But it's not this, let's say they're not, I don't see these, Beverly, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't see these as tribes. I see these as resources when you know what you already want, so to speak.
But maybe places to sort of see other people's niches and get ideas.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. All right. Any other questions?
Hi, Elizabeth.
Yeah. Hi.
Yeah. Thank you for doing this. This is interesting.
Cool.
One question I have is how do you see what you're doing now in your professional iteration? How does it differ, or where does it fall between career coaches, traditional career coaches, and the field of psychiatry and psychotherapy?
Oh, fabulous question. I love that. And I reflected on that recently a lot because my first love in medicine, I went to medical school to be a psychiatrist. And in medical school, I recognized that I didn't like the way psychiatry was practiced. And I was like, I can't be a psychiatrist if this is what I have to do. It just wasn't fun for me. And so then you're like, okay, plan B, okay. So, as I was trying to make that, I'm gonna talk about sort of mind, body, medicine, and career right here a little bit, and then I will get to your question about how it gets to career coaching and psychology in a moment. So I broke out. One of the reasons I went into dermatology is I've had chronic eczema since I was a very young child. I also had chronic hives. That was horrifying. When half your face blew up in the middle of class, it was horrifying. So it had kind of calmed down by the time I got to medical school. It was under control, but I broke out with my atopic dermatitis all over the place as I was trying to make this decision. As I was like, I want to be a psychiatrist, but I don't like it. Total and complete eczema. And it got worse and worse and worse to the point where I was like not fit to be around humans, so to speak. And when I had that moment and I found my niche and I found my genius, I was like, look at me. I'm supposed to take care of people's skin. Like, this has been my life. The eczema went away in 48 hours. Like, seriously, like I was covered, arms and legs completely covered. And it was gone. The itching was gone by the next morning. And this was one of these 2 a.m, what am I going to do moments? And then covered with, the eczema was gone entirely. And there was it was career decision and physical symptoms all in one. So the question you asked was, how is this conventional career coaching versus psychology and psychotherapy? Because I have a real interest in psychology and the workings of the mind and the way the body expresses its own emotions through physical sensations and physical symptoms. This is something that's always there. I will say that my approach actually draws a lot from Jungian archetypal philosophy. And I do a lot of psychology reading and looking at those archetypes. And then I have all of these, because I've developed all of these tools, rather than sitting around and just talking about them for years until you get sick of them, which is the basics of analysis. I can accelerate that process by helping to pinpoint and hone in on what's happening. So I am not on career coaching I'm not someone who is going to let me put it this way. I don't actually genuinely consider myself a purely career coach. I look for people who want to have a greater sense of professional satisfaction. And I'm drawing a line there because many career coaches that I know of help people to move into a specific outcome. Meaning, if you are a physician and you want to move into administration, I will help you develop those skill sets that is specifically for a career aspiration. I am, currently, working on for a large company, a large multi-specialty medical group, and I would like to open my own practice. Okay, that's a separate set of career choices. I just work with people who want to have a different experience, a different level of professional and personal satisfaction. And so some people I work with continue to work where they are, but have a different way, like work and adjust how they are working, even though they haven't moved in their practice, but adjust things so that they actually now have a greater sense of satisfaction. Some people, I've helped people retire. I've helped people retire to invent things. That was the dentist. She was like, I want to invent things. And I was like, okay, let's retire and have you invent things. I've helped people who say, okay, I want to go and, I don't know what I want, but I want to sell my practice and do something else. Okay, let's go find another medical job that combines your love of teaching. And so, she went back into academics or something like that. So so we get back, this gets back to that, like finding your genius point. That's what I help people do, because when you find your genius, you are then satisfied. You then have your professional enthusiasm back. And when you think about what all doctors have when we all start, it's like we're really, really enthusiastic. And somehow that gets beaten out of us. But we've all got it back there. And that's what I help people find. And then how that gets expressed, I don't care. I don't care. I just want people to be happy. Because as doctors, if we have the enthusiasm for our job of being like a DMV employee, it's not, like, how are we going to actually help people? But when we have enthusiasm for what we do and we like it, then it's, then whatever you're doing is going to be really high impact. And that's what you want. Like, that's what we all want. And high impact is not high volume. High impact is not high numbers. Yeah. So have I answered your question, John?
Yeah, you have. Thank you. I guess one thing that I've been noticing, and maybe some of your other participants have as well, is that there's just a tremendous amount of dissatisfaction in the medical field right now.
Absolutely.
From folks who feel overburdened with insurance companies, buyouts of practices by large multi-state corporations, and also the almost what I call the Uberization of the doctors.
I love that. Uberization.
Yeah.
Yes.
Young physicians, some coming out with several $100,000 of debt and forced to take jobs where they're essentially contract workers with liability, but with none of the benefits or professional development and track for advancement. So it's just really disheartening to see young folks coming out of medical school where they're told with very set blinders, this is what it is. And you reference some of this, that to be a doctor, you're to save people. You don't really focus so much on the business aspect, but you focus on, that's your primary function. So I guess my question, or my point rather, would be that there's just so much dissatisfaction and people feeling this isn't kind of what I signed up for way back.
Right.
And
right.
I want to do something, but I don't want to do this anymore.
Bill of goods. Yeah. Like, really? If I knew this, I'm out of here.
Exactly. And I have nieces and nephews who are contemplating medical school, and it's like, they'll ask me, and I'll be like, if I could do it again, I wouldn't do it. Because it's not what I thought it would be. So just that kind of in general, as I and several of my friends contemplate career pivots or options.
Yeah. It is. Okay. So from my standpoint, like from my lens, and thank you, Allison, I am going to answer your question in a second, but so from my lens, this dissatisfaction is something that you can take as an opportunity. But I also think that this dissatisfaction is a real place, something that needs to happen because I coach patients too. The system isn't helping them either. Like there isn't, the whole thing is broken, and so we've got broken doctors who are dissatisfied with patients who are not really getting what they want, and so the whole thing is just sort of needs to come apart. I think that's
Yeah,
pretty radical.
I think so too. I mean, I think
Yeah.
this is a really neat opportunity at this moment to have sort of all these people that we relate to, that we have shared experiences with, shared brainwashing with, that we can, right? If there's sort of a growing group of people that recognize that, want to sort of integrate, improved social justice in medicine, improve, like anti-racism work, like
Right.
all that stuff that is soul filling, bringing
Right,
that back
right.
to medicine seems like this is a neat avenue to do that. It's
Right.
cool.
And the cool thing is about it is that we all, medicine needs each and every one of our individual voices. We don't all have to do or the same thing. And yet we're all taught that we have to do roughly the same thing. Exactly. So yes, I totally agree. Let me answer Allison's questions because I'm now past the hour, and thank you all for your attention. Okay, so what coaching programs do I recommend for someone who wants to start life coaching? Well, Allison, as I said at the very beginning, there are so many out there, and I know I have your email. I believe, yes, I have your information. I think you registered. So I've got your information. I will send you the beginning because I think you may have missed the beginning. The whole point here is to find your genius. What is it that you want? What's the change, the type of change you want to see in people? And really, really hone in on that, because whatever change it is that you'd like to see on other people is something, hi there, is something that you've probably gone through for yourself, or you're wrestling with for yourself. And that's where to start. You can spend, because these life coaching programs, they are getting expensive, and the American Board of Medical Specialty programs are very, very expensive. And you can go through one of these that looks good, but if you don't know what it is that you want to actually do, and you haven't honed in on where you want to be, you can be at the end of a 1 year, 2 year program and go like, this wasn't really right. Like, this wasn't really what I wanted. Yeah. So Allison, can you?
I had a baby, so I didn't want to kind of have him cry and stuff like that.
Oh,
Thanks,
that's fine.
but I guess my question, thanks, Elizabeth. Those are the best cheeks I've seen all year. Just have big cheeks. I guess like I've been thinking about life coaching in the sense that, helping people, like what you mentioned, like kind of what you're saying is that getting people to find the motivation back in medicine and finding their passion, I guess. But, as a young physician, I think sometimes one is already, my patients don't take me that seriously because I'm young. So how would other physicians take me seriously? That's question one. And so having obviously like experiences like, life coach, institute, et cetera, puts some credential back into your experience. But yet, like, I'm reading these websites and I don't find that any of them, I don't know exactly who's done it. So they're not credentialed in the way that we have a medical degree, like from Stanford, for example, et cetera. So it's like, you don't know what you're getting, and it's so random, and it's not like you're getting something certified. And so
Yes.
it makes me feel quite uncomfortable to sign up for like a $5,000 program when at the end of it, like, I'm not sure what I'm actually getting. So that's why my question for you.
Bingo. Yes, you just summed it up absolutely perfectly. And Allison, I believe I have your email address because you registered on Eventbrite, right? Okay, so that I'm going to send you the replay from last week, where the first thing I think one of the first things I said is, as a physician, you do not actually need anything else to be qualified. And that might be another mindset thing that we need to talk about. I should add that to the mindset shifts, is the idea of I'll never be good enough. And it sort of plays into the I can't be perfect and I need to be done. Oh, perfect. I'll get to you in a second. Plays into the idea that there's I'm never going to be perfect. So as a physician, you already have a freakish amount of ability. You just do. And it doesn't matter what your age is. And it doesn't, I mean, you've put in your 10,000 hours plus, like many times over already. And so don't look at a certification as let me get the right word here, as something that will validate you. Because it's not going to, it can't. Look at those, go back to the beginning, figure out what it is that you'd really like. And then you can start honing in on the process, but don't look for something that's certified, because I have a lot of certifications, but I know that none of those certifications actually makes me a better coach. And I will say, actually, really personally, having this would be another thing, and this is not a plug to work with me. I'm just telling you sort of honestly, having gotten good coaching, not from a doctor, actually, the good coaching I've had has been, and learning from that has been more helpful than any of the certifications that I've gotten. So that's a plug, that if you're working on this and trying to find something, it might be time to get a coach. Oop, and Danielle, please send me the link for the first call. Okay. All right. Excellent. All right. I think I lost. It's after 10. I'm sorry. I'm able to stay. So I'm able to say, but I know people are running behind.
My little tribe is getting restless here, so I'm going to get off too, but thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
It's so
Yeah.
rare to just get an insight into like someone's life that's doing something cool. So thank you.
Oh my God, my life looks messy. It's awesome.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
You're welcome, John. Thank you, Allison.
Good to
Bye.
see
Bye.
you.
Bye. Bye. I'll talk to you all soon.